with us is Mr. Alan Murphy of SeaIntel. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
You just gave a presentation on the developments in the container shipping industry. Could you give us your prognosis? Will there be any improvement in the container shipping industry in the next 5 years?
It does not look very likely. The most defining element of the container shipping industry currently is the endemic overcapacity. Now that is not going away for the next 5 years. It might actually get larger or in the short term as more vessels are going to come on stream in 2014 and 2015. We have considerable amounts of new mega vessels coming on stream.
Okay, so what would be necessary to create a better market again, to have a better connection between supply and demand?
Well, first and foremost, we will need to have, at a time there will need to be stop ordering of larger mega vessels. We have reached the limit now, and there's endemic overcapacity, and this will last for many years. To bring that down, of course, a halt to new mega vessel orders. Secondly, we need to see increased scrapping of vessels. Currently, a vessel is deployed until it basically can't sail anymore, so 25 years is the standard. We need to see vessel scrappings of just 10 to 15 years when the vessels become economically unviable to run anymore, simply because they're not fuel efficient to compete with new vessels anymore. That will mean a re-evaluation and reappreciation of the current fleet, but that is the long-term sustainability, is scrapping of vessels. We're not seeing enough currently.
Okay, from actually what I've understood is that the scrapping of vessels is still going very slowly. It's a smaller vessels being scrapped. During your presentation you also spoke of a hiding capacity. Could you elaborate on this?
Well, it's a question of trying to utilize the pool of assets more efficiently, and one way that you can hide some of the vessels that you have, or so to speak hide, is to use longer routes to service the same market. A classical example of that would be the Asia to US East Coast market, which traditionally has been serviced through the Panama Canal. Now increasingly carriers are servicing the US East Coast from Asia through the Suez Canal, so going all the way through Europe and up to across the Atlantic. That is a much longer route, 17 weeks on average, which means that you now have to deploy 17 vessels, so you soak up more capacity. It does mean that transit times do become extended for shippers, so that's the price of the low freight rates, is of course that service levels are decreasing.
All right. From what I've understood is that the rates at the north-south trades, they're still okay. But what will cascading of vessels mean for these trades in the next few years?
It is absolutely clear that the traditional east-west trades, the Trans-Pacific, the Asia-Europe and transatlantic trades, they have become highly commoditized, and it's basically all on competing on price right now. The overcapacity has brought these rates down considerably. The north-south trades, or trades into South America, Africa and Oceania, have been traditionally very sound rates levels for the carriers. Now the East Coast South America trade has completely tanked over the last years because we've seen capacity cascaded into this trade with supply growth rates of close to 30%. Now that of course means that the rates have tanked now and we're in an all-time low. We are probably going to see more capacity cascaded into north-south trades, which will put high pressure on rates. And we will see decreasing rates and increasing rate volatility in these north-south trades.
Okay.
So I can answer.
And what I often see, what we often see is announcements of general rate increases, like really frequently.
Yeah.
These can be up to from $500 range up to $700 a time. How effective are these general rate increases, and what is their success rate?
The general rate increases are the carriers' attempt to try and push up rates when they've fallen too far. In order for the rate increases to be successful, a large number of carriers need to be in support of it beforehand. So you need to have a concerted effort from the carriers to all post the same GI for execution at the same time. Now that's not enough. The carriers also need to support it after implementation. So that would mean stick to their guns and not start underbidding each other. If the carriers are seeing the possibility, if an individual carrier starts underbidding the rate increase, then it will fail and will not be a success.
Okay. Thank you very much. Another hot topic within the container shipping industry is the consolidation of carriers. The Wall Street Journal just reported that it's very likely for China to give their approval to the P3 alliance of Maersk Line, MSC and CMA CGM. What will such an alliance mean for shippers?
Well, first and foremost, it's important to understand that carrier alliances do not equal consolidation. The carrier alliances are simply means for the carriers to work together, band together, and utilize their combined pool of vessels more efficiently. It can be likened to a code sharing amongst airliners. There's no commercial aspect, so the whole the business side of the lines will remain completely independent, which of course would be the complete opposite of consolidation. So it is more of a means to stave away the hurtful requirements of consolidations through acquisitions or through mergers. So it does not improve consolidation. For shippers, it does mean that the carriers will be able to utilize their vessels better, could offer more services and more connections with the same number of vessels. But as the carriers are working together in an alliance, they are offering the same physical product, which means that the main differentiating factor between carriers in an alliance will be price. So we might actually see lower prices, and we might actually see more price volatility as a consequence of alliances.
Okay, and how about ports? Because I know there's been discussion of ports winning and losing. What does consolidation, or well, I shouldn't say consolidation, but cooperating mean for ports?
Well, essentially, when the carriers are operating the networks together, they can be much more efficient, but that also means being more efficient in the number of ports that they service. So the combined alliance will not have the same need for hub ports as three individual lines. It does mean a consolidation of the number of ports that they call. This is also the consequence that we've seen in Rotterdam, where the Asian North Europe network for the P3 carriers has gone from 8 weekly calls to 4 weekly calls. The decision behind choosing the individual port is of course based on the combined carriers' efforts to have a most optimal and cost-efficient network. We have also seen the new CKHE, the expansion of the CKH alliance with Evergreen, means that there's now been an extra weekly call in Rotterdam as a consequence of that. But it's all in optimization of networks and looking at costs.
Yeah. You mentioned that during your presentation as well. We're losing, so to speak, with P3, but we've won a little back with the new CHYTE alliance, which is good news for us. One last question. There has been some disturbance, or I should say discussion about whether or not new upcoming ports like Piraeus could be a threat to Rotterdam or the Northwest Europe, or other Western European ports like Hamburg, Antwerp, etc. What is SeaIntel's perspective on this?
Well, it's hard to determine because it all, of course, depends on the trade flows, what markets are being serviced by it. Rotterdam and the other ports in Belgium and Netherlands are of course perfectly situated to service transshipment towards the North Europe market. If we're seeing an increase, which they're expecting an increase in growth rate in Eastern Europe, there are possibilities for Mediterranean ports to service to a greater extent the Eastern European and Central European markets. The question is, are they ready to take such an upsurge? There's no doubt about it that the massive volumes going into North Europe cannot easily just be transplanted into the Mediterranean, because it also requires hinterland infrastructure, which simply is much stronger in North Europe currently. But it could be other factors, such as the implementation of the sulfur emission control areas as of 2015 in the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, which might have a serious impact on cost levels for servicing North Europe ports, which may mean that we might see more cargoes being moved to Mediterranean and then being trucked and railed into Central Europe and Eastern Europe destinations.
Okay, so we shouldn't be scared yet, but we definitely have to be aware of the situation.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Alan Murphy. Thank you.